So I ran in there and I was just up the window, like trying to watch what was going on. And I could just see you crying. I'm like, let me back in. They won't let me back in.
Oh God, that day was a lot.
That
that commitment ceremony was a lot. And actually, you know what? I wasn't going to touch on this, but maybe I should. Hey guys!
Hey guys! Welcome back.
Yes, it's been a while.
It has been a little while.
I mean, we like to just keep you on your toes.
Yeah, that's it. Drip feed you.
Can't have too much of a good thing always.
No, this is true.
So today we are talking about our time during the experiment. We've had loads of questions come in about what you want to know. So we've decided to choose just a few questions from the ones that have been asked, and
we're going to try and tie, because really a lot of the questions are kind of linked, aren't they? So we're going to try and tie as many in as possible. So let's get to it.
Whoop, whoop. So the first one is MAFS scripted?
Yes. Good question. I feel like loads of people ask us this. And I feel like a lot of people think that everything like Towie and Made in Chelsea, that a lot of them are kind of scripted, but they aren't. No,
are they a bit more manipulated though?
I think, there are the situations are very much set up. So before you go through a commitment ceremony, you get dressed in your clothes the day before in what you're going to wear, and then your outfit has to get approved. And then you'll get sent down to wherever you're going to meet them. A lot of the time we did the filming the day before, didn't we? Sometimes it was the morning of the commitment ceremony.
Yeah, so you basically do your filming shots, you're getting ready shots the day before the actual day of the ceremony.
And then you'll go downstairs and you won't know who's going to be there. And then you'll walk into the room, and that situation is very much being set up. You haven't just happened to bump into Jordan. I haven't just happened to bump into Jordan and be like, oh, I'm seeing you here. So how are you feeling about tomorrow? That situation. And what you're going to talk about is planted, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they don't say this, say that.
No. So the scenarios are, like you just said, very much, the feelings and the thoughts are very real. Yeah. But it may be that production come and ask you, will you discuss this? Zoe, will you go over to Jordan and ask him how the other day was? So then because obviously production know exactly what happened the other day, but they need to bring it to the camera. So that's how it's manipulated in that instance. But in terms of fallouts that we had, no, they are very real. People being upset or people speaking about each other, that was real.
I've had a lot of people ask me like, oh, were the arguments genuine? And I'm like, yeah.
Oh my God, they're very genuine. Very. We are that crazy. No. And that's the thing, so many people are like, oh, that's not real. No, it is. And I think that's why it's hard, because actually the reality of the situation is, when you're, and before going on MAFS, when you're at home sat watching a show like that, it's a show. Yeah. And you're watching for the entertainment or the drama or the jokes or whatever. And you kind of detach from the fact that actually that is reality for us at that time. Yeah. That is our lives. That is the roller coaster we're going on. But then with it, by the time it goes on TV, it's edited and, put how it is. It can be hard to remember that. I think people do forget. I think
I had a lot of people asking me, like, a lot of people were like, trolls would say, why are you getting involved in other people's business? But I think it's important for you to remember that, like, you haven't got your phone, you're not in touch with the real world, you're not going home, you're not going to work every day, you're not, you're living and breathing not only your relationship but everyone else's. So like, you get heavily involved in other people's relationships because you're all in this mad thing together. So then you get very invested in people's business.
Yeah, definitely. And also on top of that, sometimes we get asked, so I got told the other day and they were like, oh, you caused drama. When did I cause drama? But anyway, or you had an opinion. Yeah, because I would be asked. There's times at them commitment ceremonies where we would get asked, oh, guys, what's your opinion? But it's not showing you the experts asking for our opinion. It's just showing you go straight to, say, me saying X, Y, and Z, or Zoe saying whatever. So there's a lot that people don't get to see, which obviously makes up for the show. And it is hard because when you watch the show back, you know, there's parts where you think, oh, they've missed that out.
Yeah.
I think with, like, for instance, the Whitney and Matt situation, obviously the way it came out, it was not good. And that dinner party at the retreat was explosive. And I was very much, obviously, standing up for Gemma. And I didn't agree with how it all come out and how it went about. But on the flip side of that, I did actually empathise with Whitney, and I did speak out the commitment ceremony and said that I understood actually why she'd made the decision she had, because she had been trying to leave Duca for weeks and he kept wanting to stay. And I could see it from both sides. And on my interviews, I explained that I could see it from both sides. I didn't agree with what they did or condone it, but I did fully understand.
There's loads of things like, there was loads of like quite cute moments with me and Jenna, the way we'd have like meals and stuff, and I think they were trying to tell a story of like quite a negative story for a little while. I mean, you know, we did have like arguments and stuff like that, but there was a lot of nice moments that could have been shown to show the balance. It wasn't all, and I think for a little while with mine and Jenna's journey, there was like a lot of times where I just thought they've just portrayed that to be much worse than what it was. But you know, it is what it is, and they've got to make a TV programme at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I suppose that's like the next question, like what's edited out and what like bits we've missed. I mean, there's parts of my, like, obviously we got portrayed to be really perfect, and nothing's ever perfect. I mean, we got on quite well, but there's bits where you think, oh yeah, like actually that wasn't all hunky-dory at that time. And I think that messes with your head watching it back, because it's like watching all the best bits.
And I think like you, I remember we have to speak to somebody, don't we? We have like a psychologist that we speak to, and he said, you know, he recommended that we wrote our own journey down. And so we wrote down how we remembered the journey, because when you watch it back, you will be portrayed in a different way, and it's important to not get the TV show mixed up with reality. And so I think when you watch it in a certain way, you'll be like, that I don't remember that happening like that, and then you can go back to your notes and be like, that's because that isn't how it was. I think like generally a lot of the stories were kind of, you know, no one was like shown in a really bad light. I don't think. I know like Gemma wasn't happy with the edit and stuff, but I think for my own journey, it was kind of a true reflection. I think that they missed out a few nice bits, but overall,
definitely, I agree. I think I was shown for who I am as well. It was just a bit annoying in terms of when I was more balanced. And I did feel like sometimes then, like, my facial expressions were really zoomed in on, and I thought, did I pull that face at that point? Because that can be manipulated. There's times I thought, and one bit was as well when Kwame came for me. Good old Kwame coming for me. No shit. When he came for me, half the room wasn't there. But if you watch the episode, it makes it look like everyone was in the room when that happened, and they weren't. No, you wasn't there.
I went to the toilet, and I came back, and there was a massive bouncer like by the door, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then I was like, and they were like, "You're not allowed back in." I was like, "What do you mean I'm not allowed back in?" And then I could see through the gap, and I could see Kwame going for it, and I was like, "What? Let me back in!" And they were like, and I was trying to get past, they wouldn't let me pass, so I ran. If you ran back down by the toilet, there was like where all the crew would go. There was like a glass. It was all glass, like a window, and you could see all the screens of all the cameras. So I ran in there, and I was just up the window, like trying to watch what was going on. And I could just see you crying. I'm like, "Let me back in." They wouldn't let me back in.
Oh God, that day was a lot.
That
a lot. Commitment ceremony was a lot. And actually, you know what? I wasn't going to touch on this, but maybe I should. In that commitment ceremony, I just wanted to put it out there because I didn't speak about it at the time. But obviously, that was the commitment ceremony where something that I had said about ADHD had been very much twisted, blown out of proportion, and manipulated. And just for the record, I'd say I have no bad view and I don't agree with negative stigma around ADHD or any other neurodivergent needs. I'd made a comment in private with Jordan about situation. At the time, he laughed about it, and he had said his mum had said it before, and it wasn't an issue. Like, you know me, I'd never ever say something to hurt anybody. And given my background in social work, I'm very open-minded. I'm all about helping people, and all about, including everyone, no matter, your needs, disabilities, background, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that actually was a really painful time for me, sitting on that sofa, and then something that I've said be twisted the way it had. And obviously I was very mindful that it'd be on national TV, and I didn't want anyone with ADHD to feel like I'd use that in a negative form, or try to use that to insult anyone, because I'd never do that.
No.
But that was a very painful commitment ceremony. I think all of us had a shit commitment ceremony that day, didn't we?
Yeah, I think that was a rough one, to be fair. We had a few rough commitment ceremonies. I think towards the end it was easy for us. But yeah, here's what it is.
So editing wise, I think it's hard, isn't it? If you said it.
Yeah, you said what you said, but I think, there are ways of manipulating how people have said things to, and like you say, facial expressions, or,
I think there's one where I was really drunk, so with Whitney and Matt.
Yeah.
Their bridge scene had to be remade. I think that had to be manipulated in the sense of, because Whitney and Matt had got together, production didn't keep up, and because if things happen off camera, production get a bit stressed, because they're like, we don't know what's happening, no one knows what's happening, the viewers are going to be confused, so I think that's why Whitney and Matt had to meet on the bridge, and that scene played out, so that it showed the start of their journey, because otherwise everyone would have been like, what the hell? I mean, we were feeling like that and we were living it, never mind people watching.
You have to make it make sense, don't you?
Yeah, and that's why sometimes conversations have to be re-brought up, because like the Tom and April situation in the toilet.
Oh, fucking hell.
I mean, still to this day.
I was just thinking, who said what?
Do you know what? And I said it at the dinner table, and I'll stand by it. I said, they both bitched about me.
Yeah.
They both bitched about me. Uncalled for, because I didn't deserve it. And that's how I made peace with the situation. Because I was really upset at the time, and I felt a bit like targeted, and I felt like it was uncalled for, and I hadn't done anything to deserve it. No. And it really messed in my head, because I felt like I was in a new situation, a scary situation where I'm with a whole new load of people that I don't know. I'm far away from home, just like you were, cut off from friends and family, and I don't know how TV works or production, and I felt really, really lonely, and I didn't know who to trust, so that I found very difficult. So to come to peace with it, and I was so ready to literally deal with it there and then, and that's why I said they both did it, both take accountability for it and move on, but it just got dragged out so painfully. But that Whitney thing, when we was at the girls' night, and she said, "Oh, me and Matt have said I love you," and then it goes to my interview, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think?" And I go, like that. I was very drunk.
That's what I said. It's not the fucking Notebook. They said the same, and I was like, what? They was just literally like, what the fuck is going on?
It was a bit of a shock, but then also at that time we didn't know the timeline with them. We was like, what is the timeline with you guys? How long have you been speaking? What's been going on? And when I got asked that question, I was drunk at that girls' night, because I was in the taxi with Tom and Jenna on the way to the girls' night, and Tom had a bottle of Volvic, and he was like, "Oh, do you want a drink, Chanita?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm fine." He's like, "No, do you want a drink?" So I was like, "Oh, okay." It was like vodka.
What was it?
It was like, I swear it was lemon water and vodka.
He was in that dinner party about 10 seconds, wasn't he?
At the ladies' night, it didn't last long. He was on one. We turned up, and Jenna was really drunk. So us three were drunk because Jenna was saying we were drunk.
I could tell how drunk I was. When I watched it, I was like, she's smashed.
And that was Tom's fault with that bloody Volvic bottle. And then he was just not in the mood. And then he started beefing everyone. I remember him saying basic bitches like that, and Sophie was like, what the hell? And I was like, he's not talking about you, Sophie.
He had to go so didn't he?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, he's not talking, because I just thought, obviously, his issues with Whitney and April. I was like, oh, he's not talking about you, Sophie, don't worry. Not that makes it any better, but I was just like, oh, he's not. And then he realised he was talking about her also, and he just went 0 to 100 real quick. So it was very dramatic, but I was drunk. And that's something that got edited out. Me and Jenna got filmed afterwards, didn't we, going home?
Oh yeah, so we had to do a scene. Basically, when we had our lads' night, we had our lads' day out, and they had the girls' night out. And our lads' night out was us being picked up about 8 a.m. And then we all had to go. So we had to go and shoot. Like going into this bar and sitting around. It's like 10 a.m. And we wasn't allowed to drink any alcohol until after 12 o'clock. I don't know what that was about. So we had to just drink like fake beer. And then we got back, and then you guys went out to do yours, but you started filming about 2. I'm assuming the film crew just came straight over to you.
Yeah, it was a bit later.
And so on the night, you guys had been gone for ages. Me and Jordan had like some Wagamamas or something, and we watched a film. And then they were like, oh, they want us to do a scene when you get back, and so we were like, right, no worries, and you need to cook Jenna some chips or something. So I cooked Jenna some chips, get some food. We laid the table out, they filmed it all. And then Jenna came back, a drunk eyes. I was like, she was smashed. And I was thinking, so then they had to film this scene where Jenna's like, she's basically saying, I don't really know what's going on, don't really care. She was just smashed. And then my phone went, my little burner phone, and it was Jordan. Is Jenna absolutely smashed? I was like, yeah, and it's like socially, it's actually jumping all over the bed.
So Jordan was waiting for me to get back, and he was like, lay on the bed, chilling. And I was like, hi! Just coming through, because I'm quite happy drunk. So then I jumped on the bed. I was like, hey, like really energetic. And he was like, whoa. And he was like, you alright? Which was funny because he was always the one that would get really drunk out of the two of us. So it was nice to switch it up, and he could deal with me drunk. And then I was just like, oh yeah. So he's asking me about the night. And I'm like, yeah, this, that and the other. I couldn't remember half stuff. Completely forgot the Tom stuff. Didn't tell him about that because I completely forgot. And then he must have asked me something. And then, because Keisha at our ladies' night was like, funny enough, she was like to single. She was like to being single. That's what she initially toasted to. And production were like, no, Keisha, you can't do that. Like, you come on married at first sight, you can't toast to being single. So
you are all like, woo!
It's like, girls day! And you get drunk and you're just like in it. So then it changed to sisterhood. So then I was going to Jordan, I was like, yeah, but sisterhood, babe. Sisterhood, babe. And he was so annoyed.
Oh, God.
So yeah, that was me drunk. And yeah, it was really funny because I literally jumped on the bed. Like, to be fair, I was pretty impressed. Like, jumped with my arm. So yeah, there's so many little bits and bobs that you don't get to see, and it just, I suppose, shows us more as people and actually who we are in terms of our personalities. So, another question is, did you have your phones during the MAFS period? And the simple answer is no. We got our mobiles given to us, didn't we, when we needed to pay bills or if we needed to contact home. I think like George and PJ was able to like contact their kids and stuff.
Yeah.
I know some people snuck their phone though.
So basically, like, you'd say things like, oh, I need to pay a bill. Yeah. And then, like, they come and drop your phone off. And then like they'd obviously be busy doing other stuff, so they wouldn't come back. So then I just wouldn't say anything. Then eventually they'd be like, "Give me your phone." I'd be like, "Oh
God, yeah,
I have to give it up." But I remember, Tom. So Adrian told me that Tom had another phone.
Yeah.
And he had a phone for quite a while, and nobody knew about it. So he was like FaceTiming his mum. We were in the apartment, so we'd have said nothing. Anyway. I saw Adrian the next day and he's like, "Oh, Tom's phone's taken off him." And he was like, "Oh, how do you know?" He said, "Well, he got drunk and he rang Soph." Welfare Soph. And no, he just rang her. And then she's like, "How are you calling me?" And then she came and she's like, "Pass me the phone." And he was like, "Oh, man."
Yeah. And then I know Keisha had her phone the whole time. I think Kwame had a different phone because people had like work phones and stuff. I think George had a phone the whole time.
Yeah.
So they made sure they had, but I was just too good, and I only had one phone. But this is the phone that we were given. I mean, it doesn't even have Snake. So I was really upset about that.
Some of them had Snake in it.
Yeah, some people had the upgraded version. I thought, well, I didn't.
And to be fair, some days there's nothing to do, man. You're just sitting around, you haven't got your phone, you want to scroll through Instagram, but you can't.
Just the littlest things. But do you know what, as well, it was a little bit therapeutic, I suppose, to not have your phone at times.
Yeah.
And, you know, it made me laugh, because we just disappear off the face of the earth. Like, people are messaging, like, are you okay?
And obviously you can't tell anyone you've gone on MAFS.
No.
So there's like loads of people that are just like, "Oh, are you okay, hon?" And we had to disable all of our, I disabled my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I came off Facebook and never gone back. But like things like, I remember going back for a funeral, and I literally had to go from London to Stafford for about 3 hours, and then I had to get a car straight back.
Yeah.
And when I was at the funeral, we were chatting about, they started talking about Johnny Depp and the case that had gone on and everything. Yeah. And I was like, "What are you on about?" And they were like, "Are you joking? How do you not know about that?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And this massive thing that everyone's talking about, we had no. And I'm like, apparently it's a big Johnny Depp case or something going on.
And it was really out of the loop. That's true, actually. There was so many things that usually you'd be in the know about, but you did feel really disconnected from society, because also, although the world started to get, although the world started to come out of COVID and things were back to normal, we were like living in COVID times. So we wasn't allowed to go to the pub, we wasn't allowed to go to cinema, we wasn't allowed to go anywhere like where there's loads of people. If we went to the shopping centre, that's all we did, go to the shopping centre, didn't we? Then we'd have to be like chaperoned at times. There was a time, which I'll tell you, where we snuck off to the Alchemist.
Yeah.
That was great.
We all met in the lobby and I was like, "I'm sick of this." And I felt like we all need to just go out and we'll all just go to the pub and we'll all just have some cocktails, whatever. So I was like, what we're going to do is, George and April, you're going to meet us at Tesco around the corner and you're going to go down at 12. Shanita and Jordan, you're going to go down at 12:15. We'll go down at 12:30. And then who else was there?
I think we was going to invite Duca, and then he fucked it all up, didn't he?
Yes. Well, to be fair, there was a bouncer that was downstairs that was just mine. So I went down, I just casually went out, and then you guys went out, and we all met at Tesco, and we were like, right then. So we all went round, then our burner phone started ringing, and it was Lewis, one of the welfare guys. And I was like, so they're ringing everyone, I was like, I was panicking, I don't like breaking rules,
really. She was really panicking.
And then,
she's like, what should I do? Should I answer it? What should I do?
So I answered the phone, I went outside, I was like, "Hi Lewis, just gone out for a walk." And then it's like, "No, I know you're with the rest of them, where are you?" And I was like, "We're at the Alchemist."
And then it came, and he looked like someone's really disappointed, angry dad. And he comes in, and was like, "Sorry, Lewis." And he comes to just see our table filled with food and cocktails, and we had a feast, like we really did treat ourselves. And it turned out that I think Lewis had bumped into Duca in the elevator, and Duca flipping told him.
Oh yeah, they've all gone Alchemist. I'm like, "Duca, what is
why
wrong
would you
with
do that?" He's gone, hey. And I swear he was invited, so yeah, Duca ruined that for us. Thanks, Duca. But it was really good, because then Lewis came and then just sat with us. But they're funny moments, aren't they? Like, you're like, the other bit, like when you stole the Prosecco at the retreat.
Oh yeah, so they had like loads of alcohol, The retreat was like my favourite part of the process, I think. And we had finished the dinner party. Obviously, we'd had argument. I'd had my first argument with Matt, one of many, and everyone had kind of like got separated. And people, there was still stuff because a lot happened. It was just a bit like, and me and Jenna had this incredible room with this like balcony and whatever. And I ran through the kitchen and I looked and there was 2 bottles of Prosecco. There was a tub there filled with Prosecco. And there was one of the girls, the runners, and I was like, which one's non-alcoholic? And she's like, I can't tell you. And I was like, if these got alcoholic, she's like, I can't tell you. You're not allowed to have it. And I was like, I'm having it. And I just ran out and then ran upstairs, went into the room, and then put it behind the speaker. And then I just went back downstairs. And then I was like, Jordan, Chanita, Jenna, shall we? And then we went back upstairs, and then I got the thing out. I was like. Formula One.
Yeah,
it's great, wasn't it? We got the bean bags, and then we had 2 bean bags. That was my favourite moment. That was. We had the 2 bean bags. They were like massive bean bags that you could lie on. And then I went and got some throws. When I got some bean bags from downstairs, and then we lay on the balcony. And I was 2 on one, you 2 on another. And there was like the sky, because we were in the middle of nowhere. The sky was just like so clear. It was like shooting stars, and we just had this music. You couldn't pick the music. We just had to press play. So well, there was some bangers, man.
It was a random speaker.
Yeah.
That was a good night.
Yeah, it was a really.
There was some really good memories from
and
that.
And like when they asked, so I think there was a lot of times when they'd interview you. And you get asked what your best moment was, and I was like, when we were lying on that balcony, and they're like, we need it to be one that was on camera.
Yeah, you're like, because like we had, I know we like really digress, but there's so much to say. We had like nights together in terms of like parties. So we watched the boxing at Keisha and Kwame's one night, which was a really good night. I know Tom doesn't speak so highly of it because Kwame didn't invite Tom, which it was, I get. Isn't very nice.
Yeah.
But I think it was more because Kwame was very wary that at that time Tom seemed to be causing a lot of problems for people and wasn't being nice to people, so he just didn't want drama. So there was that half and half because not everyone was there, to be fair. I think Jess had her own little thing at her flat.
It was supposed to be a lads thing.
Yeah.
Lads were watching the boxing, girls were having, I don't know, painting their nails or whatever. And you was there. Well, you was with the lads.
Of course. I'm always with the lads. I'm that kind of girl that will end up with the lads.
And then at the end of the night, I remember going back upstairs and I'd gone downstairs and Jenna was absolutely smashed, and I thought, wow. So I was like, right, half an hour and then you need to, we've got stuff to do tomorrow. So went back up, half an hour later, went back down to Jess's apartment, and she's like, Jenna's gone. She went about 15 minutes ago. I was like, oh. So I've gone in the room, gone in the bedroom. She is face down, fully clothed, still with the trainers on, in bed, obviously really drunk. So I was like, oh, what if she's sick? So I had to undress her, pick her up, move the quilt, put her back down, put her in bed. And then I thought I'm going to have to get her a bowl. So I got her a glass of water, and all I could find was a casserole dish. So I put a casserole dish next to the bed. And then the next day at like 7 a.m, I had to take her, it was Yes Week. And I took her down for the training session in the park, and she was still drunk. She hated it, so she's fuming.
That is funny, and that's why they're still together. And then like we had the night of yours, the nacho night. There's like so many. It's like the nights where it was so nice, and like people were like rapping and stuff. We had 4 Mile, not 8 Mile. It was like 4 Mile night. And it's like it was absolutely. They were the nights that were great. Like where you just let go of things and just actually be a bit normal for once. And no cameras. And I think that leads on to the next question of, do you feel natural in the cameras?
I think at first it's very, very. I remember sitting down and I remember when they did the backstories, and it felt very unnatural for me to sit there, and I thought, I can't do this. Like, this is a lot. But once you get used to it, I think you're very aware when you're doing voxes. So explain what voxes are. Voxes are whenever you go to a dinner party or a commitment ceremony. Basically, whenever you do anything, you do your bit of filming, and then you both get taken off, don't you? and you get taken off separately, sometimes together, and you have to film a Vox, which is basically, there's a camera there, there's lights on you, and then there's a person standing next to the camera, and they ask you questions, and you have to answer in full sentences, because obviously, so they'll be like, how did you find tonight? And you have to say, I found tonight, yeah. But then they have to do things like, so like at dinner parties, they'll be like, right, they'll do a Vox at the end, so then they'll be like, right, you've just got to the dinner party, how are you feeling? So you'll be like, I'm really excited to go to the dinner party tonight, but the dinner party's been and gone. You know exactly what's happened. But like, so obviously you go back to how you're feeling at that time, but that's not, obviously you couldn't, it has to make sense.
It's hard to talk, so it's hard to talk about past tense as present tense.
Yeah.
And that can be really messy, because you like, so be like, oh yeah, I had a great chat with Zoe. Oh, I'm having a great chat with Zoe. And you're like, oh gosh.
But I think, so going back to, do you feel comfortable around the cameras? I think you do get more comfortable. You're very aware that they're there. However, when you go into things like the dinner parties and the commitment ceremonies, they're the most natural that you feel, because the cameras are just rolling and they're just letting things happen. So like, if this was a situation that's being set up now, you've got a camera there that's directly on you, and you've got a camera there that's directly on you. So you're very much like, it's quite unnatural.
Yeah. And you can never look at the camera.
No.
You're not allowed to look at the camera.
Even though you just want to, like, sometimes you're just like...
Yeah. Even though flipping Keisha did.
That was one of my favourite moments. She's just like...
Yeah. Oh god. But yeah, like it is difficult, because like you said, it's in your face. But whereas at the dinner parties and the commitment ceremonies, the cameras are all around the room, and there's a lot more space, and you just in the flow of it, and you do feel more natural.
But I always am worried about watching dinner parties back for that reason, because if you're talking, there's cameras there, you're in control of your narrative, so you know exactly what you're saying, and you can control, like, you don't want to slag someone off, or you don't want to be, and I think that when you are in the dinner parties and you get lost in conversations, you forget those cameras are there. And when I used to watch them back, it's like, oh god,
oh shit, I said that. Oh, that was me. Oops. You know what? I just thought, with the cameras, I just very much thought, I can only be me. At the end of the day, this is me. I can only be me. I can't be anybody else. And that's, I think I tried to take pressure off myself with that, because I just thought, just be yourself. And if you say whatever you say, that's you as a person, and you'll deal with it as and when. But then, it is difficult. But then let's talk about the commitment ceremonies.
The thing that people don't know is you will have about 45 minutes to an hour sit down. So when you get called forward, you're really talking about your shit. You're speaking on all your problems and stuff. It's not like, you get a snippet of the relationship and where it's at, but you genuinely go for like a therapy session. And it can't, do you know what, if I'm honest, what I've kind of learnt from MAFS is, like, I think that people associate therapy with, like, that you go to see somebody if you have to be in a bad place to go and get help or go and speak to somebody. And really, I think to maintain a healthy relationship and to look after your own, it's maintenance.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're speaking about stuff, and I feel like we should normalise going to speak to somebody when everything is okay, because before things get into a big problem.
Prevention.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm feeling like this about this, or like if you're in a relationship, that's starting to get on my nerves, and then let's sort out our problem now.
It's like mediation as well. So a third person looking at it, and that I agree, and I think we do have a long time sat there. So a commitment ceremony, we can be there hours and hours. So the one where everyone's having like a horrible week, we were there. I mean, let's start from the beginning of the day. Say the beginning of the day, we're up early, gone for 8 o'clock. You might have deliberations, so then you're put in a group with people. So we never choose the people that we're deliberating with.
No.
We're put with them. So then you're filming that and you're discussing your relationship with the other people, which again is going to make you more invested in other people's relationships and have an opinion. And then from that, there'll be a break, and it takes ages, isn't it? The breaks are hours long. So you might eat in that time. You're doing voxers. You're doing the shots where you walk. You're doing the shots of you writing if you stay or not. Like, there's so much that goes into it. It's mad. And then the commitment ceremony might start. Again, with that, we're seated. We do not choose where we're seated. We have to look at the seating plan and be like, right, you're there, we're there, okay? And sometimes you're like, oh, I really want to sit there.
If you get them stools on the back, you're fuming.
Oh my gosh, the stools at the back are the worst. To the point, I sat on them one day and my ass was numb. Like, numb. And then the next time they put me on it, I was like, look, I need a cushion. That was the most diva-ish moment I had in that. I was like, no. I was like, I cannot sit on that stool for that long. I need a cushion. And I went, and there was a nice little cushion there. So that was my diva moment. So then, we don't choose that. Then you start the commitment ceremony off, and it might be so many couples.
Yeah.
Then it's a massive break, innit?
Yeah.
And then... and there's a massive break, and we also had the aeroplanes.
Oh my god, yeah. So like, I forgot about that. If for some reason they put the set right next to a fucking airport, and so every time a plane flew over, which was every 3 minutes, everyone had just stopped talking. Oh, sorry, it's a plane. And then it just got to the point where like everyone just got so used to it that we'd all just be like, so like when I remember when Sophie and Jonathan came in and Matt and Gemma. And everyone was they were a bit like looking around, and they obviously weren't used to it. It was like second nature. You'd just be talking about your problems, and then you'd hear an aeroplane, just be like, yeah, so basically. So Matt in general, everyone was like, what's going on?
Are they okay?
And then they'd just be like, so yeah, I felt like.
Oh, one sec, let me just hold that tear in.
Yeah. And then you'd be like I mean, and then everyone would just be like, everyone just sit there. It was really weird,
yeah, because the aeroplanes, in case you don't know, the airplanes would affect the microphones and stuff, so it would mess with the sound. So there was no point you speaking, because you'd probably have to say it again, and then that takes it away from being natural if you're having to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
So we had that. Then we'd have breaks, so it'd take a long time, and if everyone's got, you know, a lot of shit to unfold, then it takes even longer. It's interesting because so much was cut out then, commitment ceremony, stuff that I thought wouldn't be cut out. Like, I know, for instance, one day I said something really good, right, to the point Paul was like, Chanita's got it down to a T. She said it perfectly, and it was about April and George, and it was all cut out. Adrian got cut out with his words about George and his views. Yeah, there's so much. Is there anything in the commitment ceremony you was a bit like,
I don't think there was anything. It was. I remember sitting there for the first time and thinking, "This is mad." Like, because obviously you watched it on the TV and then you sat in it. It's just bizarre.
It is.
But no, I just think that they're a lot longer than what people think. We obviously all get separated. Me and Jenna weren't even allowed to be together some weeks. So if we weren't getting on very well, or we had a couple of weeks where we weren't getting on so well. I think there was I don't know, there was just a couple of weeks, I can't remember what they were now. And so they separated us, and so then the only time to air that was when we got onto the sofa. But to be fair, there was one time that we went onto the sofa and we weren't getting on, and they didn't let us speak, and then we just spoke about it and we walked away, and we were really good. And then the next week we were really good, got on the sofa, walked off, and then we wasn't friends after. Jenna walked off. I was like, oh bloody hell! You're not supposed to walk off and not to be talking.
No, honestly, I remember that. It is mad, and you're right. We get completely separated from our partner until the commitment ceremony. So that's true.
Yeah.
So then that leads us on to the finale, the dinner parties, and what people missed.
Yeah.
So dinner party, again, waking up early to film early.
There were same sort of days, wasn't there? Commitment ceremonies and dinner parties. You'd be up and out like sometimes between 8 and 9. And you get home between 10 and 11 at night. Yeah,
and you are put away in these little so everyone's split up and you're in these little containers. It's the most bizarrest thing. So you sat around waiting, aren't you?
Yeah.
In groups. And then for the mixer, you're all waiting, so you don't know who's going to go in as and when. So you don't know if you're going to be first, second, last, whatever. And then from the mixer, we all get together, have a drink. I mean, it's crap if you're the last one in the mixer, because by the time you get in there, that alcohol is gone. Thankfully, I was never last. And then we do the mixer, about an hour, 2 hours, I don't know, and then you break.
Yeah, so then they're just like, dinner is served. And so everyone's like, everyone gets up and then they start walking through and they're like, woo! And then you walk and then they cut and then you just have a break for 2 hours.
Yeah, and then you go eat. It's really bizarre. Go eat, Vox. Sometimes if there was like E4 people there, you might do some fun things for the content. And you just chill or do some photos with the photographer. And then you're waiting ages, then you go for the dinner party.
Yeah.
And that's when it just starts again. You're looking around the table for your name tag, where you sat, and everything's always calm. It's always calm at the beginning of the dinner party, innit? Because you've got your food. The food was nice. Sometimes it was a bit cold by the time you got to it, which was a pain in the ass.
Go on then, say what you always say.
Okay, right.
And Chanita moaned about this. I reckon I've heard her moan about it at least 30 times.
Potentially, that's fair. You can say that, okay. There was no pudding. Who has a dinner party with no pudding? Like, and every week they gave me a spoon.
Oh, here she is.
Every week they gave me a spoon, and every week I had that little bit of hope.
And every time she'd sit down, they'd give us a spoon again. But there's no pudding.
There's no pudding. Why would there not be a pudding at a dinner party?
They served you top class drama. An honesty box, that's your pudding.
Oh, and honestly, also, they were very winist. They just assumed you'd drink wine.
Yeah.
I didn't drink wine. Then I drank wine at MAFS.
You thought the first time I met you that the first time I went to the dinner party and Jenna wasn't there, Chanita sat opposite. And she's like, I don't like wine. I can't do an accent. I can't do an accent. So I don't like wine.
I don't like wine.
I don't like wine. And she's like, oh, I quite like rosé. Is that white wine and red wine mixed together? And I thought, bitch.
She was like, yeah, I'm not hanging around with her. But I ended up drinking wine because you had to in them situations because it was crazy.
Yeah, wild.
Honestly, like, imagine what people see at home and they're thinking, what the hell?
Yeah.
Never mind living it. And there's so much cut out. Even the retreat one, what you saw, that was mental. I mean, things were being shouted, people storming off.
Yeah.
It was intense, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the main one.
So, let's discuss the final dinner party. I just feel like there was a lot. When I watched that, I was kind of shocked at the edit. It was obviously shown at 8 o'clock, so it had to be. But I don't know whether or not they kind of used that as a bit of an excuse because apparently there was an edit.
Yeah, and they edited it first. Yeah.
I
think Made in Chelsea ruined it. I think because Made in Chelsea was starting, they put that on at 9, so they moved us to 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which then changed the episode completely.
But the last dinner party, I mean, there was so much. There were so many things that happened, like.
So many.
And also, let's just start off by saying, I'll speak on what I saw at that time, and I'll speak very honestly about it. But the first thing is, I don't give a shit about that situation. I've actually got no beef with anybody. I don't give a shit. Like, I hope everyone's very happy. And also, I think it's important to say that, like, it's really important that if we're speaking on this subject, and I don't mind being honest about it, but I don't want anybody else to be messaging, like, giving people shit. Like, I don't think it doesn't help me by a stranger messaging Matt and saying, you're a prick. Yeah. I don't want anyone to get shit. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair for you to say.
Yeah, I think it's important that, like, if I'm going to speak on the subject, I don't want anyone to give anyone shit about it because it's done and I'm over it and I don't need anyone to tell Matt that he's a prick because I told him myself.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You told him more than a prick. So,
let's start off by saying that Matt was in a bad place. I think his mum was really ill. I think she's got cancer. I don't know like what's happened, but I know that he was in a bad place.
Yeah, right.
And to be honest, should he have attended that dinner party, he probably wasn't in the right state. He's also spent the majority of the time sober, and he came to that dinner party and got pissed. And I think that he wasn't in a great place. And I think that played a huge part in the way that he acted that
night. He was
night.
very aggressive. I think he had a thing with Gemma that night.
Yeah, so he called Gemma a slag.
Yeah.
And it was completely uncalled for. Like, it was just they sat them fucking opposite each other, and you just thought, you know.
Which must have been hard for Gemma to look at Whitney and Matt sat together. So they had a bust up and then PJ ended up standing up like, shouldn't be calling people slag, because I think Gemma had messaged PJ, so they'd been chatting, because obviously Gemma and PJ wouldn't have known each other.
No.
So
Gemma had messaged PJ apparently. Yeah. I don't know if this is true. I haven't got a clue. And obviously we were down the other end of the table, so this is the story that I know. So Gemma had reached out to PJ because obviously PJ had left the experiment. Gemma came in. We'd obviously spoken on PJ because we all love him, and she had messaged him in between MAFS ending and the reunion. And they'd been chatting. Obviously, it got brought up at the table, and then Matt called Gemma a slag for messaging PJ. Bang out of order, but that obviously started it.
And then that's why then people stuck up for Gemma, and I was like, you don't be calling people that.
So then, when they were arguing, they were like, that's a good thing actually. So when they were arguing, Gemma's like, you fucking boy, why are you being such a cunt?
Yeah.
And so, sorry if anyone doesn't like that word. So anyway. When he got round to we all had questions that we had to ask, didn't we? And there'd been a couple of things that I was like pissed off with Matt about anyway. And then when he got round to the questions, Jenna asked her question to me, and it was like, where do you see our relationship going? And the questions were already written for you. And I was like, I'll answer the questions, whatever. I answered it. And then I got mine out, and mine was like a nice question saying like, what are the next steps and whatever. And I was like, my question is, Matt, why are you such a cunt? And then he was like, to be fair, I wound him up there, didn't I? That was
I think that was because he'd been such a certain way. Yeah. Like, he'd said stuff about Sophie, stuff about Gemma. He was just saying things, and you just like,
he was just going around the table, beating everyone up.
He was riling me.
And what did he say about Soph? What did he say to Soph?
That she was fake. He said she was fake.
He said to Gemma that Soph was fake, and then he got down the table, and we were like, what? And that's why me and Matt had the argument, because he's just calling people out. And then I started having an argument with Matt, because I was like, you're fucking out of order, she's not fake. And then Soph was obviously upset. She walked off. You followed her.
I think even him and Whitney had a thing that night. I think he was just everywhere. Like, so much happened in this dinner party. So sorry if it seems scatty, but it's so hard to remember things in that environment, because it's 0 to 100 real quick.
Laura stood up and just got her tits out when everyone was arguing.
Yeah, oh my god, it was so hectic. This is how crazy it was, right? It's that crazy that everyone's shouting at each other. I mean, I was probably stuffing my face with bread. Anyway, because I did that a lot. It was going left and right. And then Laura's like, right, I'm going to get my tits out. And I was like, no, you're not, Laura. She said it to me. She's like, I'm going to get my tits out. I was like, no, you're not. And then she stood up, went boom, like that. And because I was sat near her, and I went, but this is how crazy it was. Not one person batted an eyelid. It was more like, anyway, you're a twat.
No one batted an eyelid.
No one batted an eyelid.
I remember I seen her tits and I just moved on. I just started sitting and then just looked.
That is how mad these dinner parties are, that people get the tits out and no one even...
I wanted a glass of wine, and I think Jonathan was pouring me a glass of wine. And Whitney came over and she got the wine decanter where my glass was there, and she was like, that's enough. And when she's grabbed the decanter, it's fucking chucked all wine down me. And I was raging, and then I was just like, then everyone was like, what's that? But there's so much going on, no one really saw it. And Jenna was like, so I'm like, no. And then so that was right at the start of the dinner party, and so I was already wound up then, and then like it was just so beefy.
It was so much going on. And then you had so there was a part where I think Duke got a question, and he's basically said, like, if I could do things differently, I'd have had Chanita or Sophie as a wife, which obviously, following the stuff he'd said at the mixer, then got Jordan, you're being disrespectful, Duca, you're being disrespectful. And Sorry, I laugh about it now because it's just hilarious. And he was being really mardy and jealous. And he's like, being this, and he tried to drag Duca to the chair for them to discuss it. Production were like, no, we're going to end filming soon. Like, stop. And people like, how can you moan, Jordan, like the way you've treated Chanita, and now you're going to be like, oh, you're disrespectful.
But I think, to be fair, Duke is his mate, innit? So he shouldn't be putting it on you. So to be fair, irrelevant of the situation.
I mean, if someone else notices how amazing I am, Zoe, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying. It was just so funny. And then, obviously, it was ridiculous. It was crazy. There was so much going on. You had Keisha and Kwame. Keisha slamming that spoon down. Like, there was so much.
I think the main bit at the end was there was all the arguments that had happened. And then once the cameras had cut, I was like, yeah, that was a lot. And I stood up and I went outside. And I mean, I don't smoke, but I was like, I need a cigarette. And then so Jenna came over and I was like, it's nothing against you. I was like, I just need a minute on my own because like I just need to digest what's just happened. Yeah. So Jenna and Adrian were standing there and I was just like, just give me a minute. And so I was, they walked like just off like, and the next thing they've let Matt and Whitney outside the same door, and I just thought, why have they fucking let Matt and Whitney out the same? So anyway, they both came over, and I was sitting down. They were just standing over me, and they were just both coming at me, and I was like, and I was just going, just fucking leave me alone. You just need to leave me alone. And then so then I stood up like as if like not like, you know, kicking off. It was just like they like standing over me, and I thought, nah. So I stood up. And then it all got very aggressive, and then like so then I think Whitney changed, and she was kind of saying to Matt, calm down, because he was getting really aggressive.
But she's not about aggression, and that Whitney's not really. No, and she says what she's saying. She's like.
So then at this point now, when I stood up, those people then just holding Matt back, and they were just like, and he was just like, he'd passed it. He was like, just you could just see his eyes. He was like, yeah, and I was like, what the fuck? And then so they've pulled him away, and he's shouting stuff. So then I was like, I remember saying, that's the real Matt, the one you've been trying to hold back. You've been trying to hold that in the whole time. And then Emma Pringle was going to me, Zoe, shut up! And Emma Pringle's the welfare first. She was going, leave it. And then he shouted something else, and I was like, oh, it's come out again. And Emma was going, Zoe! And I was like, sorry. And then he said something again. He called, what did he say?
Oh, did he call you cracker?
No, he did. He said, he said, yeah, shit. Yeah, shit. And I was like, fucking hell. I mean, coming from Super Noodle hair, fucking ridiculous. But anyway, I mean, that was, to be fair, that was, and at the time, like, so the next day when they came back, the executive producer came to see me, and they basically said, like, how would you feel about him being there? And I was like, yeah, like, you know, I don't mind being there, but I don't really want. I didn't feel that. It's not that I felt unsafe. I just thought I don't fucking want to. I was just that done with it then. Yeah. So then he obviously came, did he went first, and then he went.
And that's why he's apologised the way he did, and that's why people had so many questions, because we're like, what's he apologising for? But that's that I wasn't there for that incident, because a lot of us were they? I think PJ and Duke were there, weren't they?
PJ and Duke, I think, were the ones that. I don't know whether or not. I think PJ was pissed off that he'd missed it, because obviously
he'd had an issue with Matt that night, didn't he?
Well, yeah. But to be fair, like, you know, it's done, it's forgotten. I haven't got any I'm never going to be in banks with Matt.
No.
But,
and, you know, the next day, obviously, what had happened with you, obviously I heard that, you know what I mean? So I was like, what the fuck? But when I seen him the next day at the commitment ceremony, the final one, he looked broken, didn't he? Like, he looked, and that, it really, like, was getting to me, because although his actions were horrendous, and the way he was, which he acknowledged, but it was, I just remember looking at his face and thinking, like, you're not okay. And like the mum situation and that, like, I haven't been in that situation, so I can empathise, but I don't fully know what it's like. And I just remember seeing him, and actually when him and Whitney were on the couch, I did tear up.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, I had a big issue with Matt, and it wasn't the fact of the situation and everything. It was a personal thing. I was pissed off. He didn't like me. I didn't like him.
Both just didn't like each other.
Yeah, that's it. But equally, you know, he was going through a situation. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And so,
and I think he underestimated it, because I remember when he first came in the experiment, and like we would say things in terms about the experiment, how it's hard, how it messes with your head, how it's an emotional roller coaster. And I remember at the beginning being very blasé about it, and like, what these people have only just met, why did they feel like this on the couch? Why are they saying this, that and the other? Yeah. And then I think by the end of it, he got it, and he was like, wow, actually, this is a lot harder than I anticipated. And it is a lot, like, you know, don't, by all means, if anyone wants to apply for Married at First Sight, I would recommend it. Obviously, I didn't get what I wanted. Zoe did though. But just be aware how hard it can be. It's emotional roller coaster, gets you questioning all sorts, and it's not for the faint-hearted, basically.
Yeah. So there we go.
That's us in the MAFS period.
So if you're not already, go subscribe.
Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram, Honesty Box Podcast.
We're on TikTok.
And we're on Spotify. So, you know, we're everywhere.
We're all over. We're like dog shit, right? We're everywhere. What's the saying?
There's dog shit everywhere.
Well, there's dog shit everywhere, isn't there? Like, oh, it's a phrase.
It must be a Stafford.
Anyway,
Over and out.